What will happen when hundreds of people from the future time travel and come to the year 2024? Now, what is going to happen in the future that so many people had to come to the past? Know this in our new series, Decrossing. The complete series will be concluded in this one video. Now, let's start a new story. The story begins in a small town where hundreds of people suddenly drown in the sea. Many drowned, while others began to swim. Among the crowd was a mother who was trying to save her child from drowning by mouth-to-mouth breathing. Soon, the sheriff of the town informs his colleague that they have suddenly found a lot of dead bodies washed ashore. Both rushed to the spot and saw many people lying down. By evening, more bodies were brought ashore. Now the sheriff was in shock along with his colleague because none of these people were wearing life jackets, and they couldn't figure out what they were doing in the sea. Out of all the survivors, only 47 people survived, while more than 500 others drowned in the water. Upon hearing about this disaster, an agent from Homeland Security arrived and said that they had not informed the public yet because they first needed to investigate who these people were. They had no data on any of them. Now, the officer goes to the little girl named Leah and asks her where she came from. The girl's answer was something no one could believe. She said that she and her mother had traveled back in time from 180 years into the future because there was a massacre happening there. Not only that, but another survivor also confirmed that Leah was telling the truth. The future was going to be very dangerous. As expected, no one believed their story, and the authorities began interrogating each of the 47 survivors, but all of them gave the same answer. They started explaining the reality of the future, how by the year 2187, the Earth would have changed drastically. In the future, scientists would have altered human genes, turning some wealthy people into superhumans, individuals whose bodies were immune to all diseases. These superhumans formed a group called epics and started killing regular humans so that only their superior race would survive on Earth. In response, the remaining humans built a time machine that could only send 2 people from the future to the past, which is why these people came back to the year 2024 to escape death in the future. The entire department was now stunned because every survivor was giving the same statement. However, no one was ready to believe in the idea of time travel. So, they decided not to inform the public about these 47 survivors or the over 500 bodies found by the shore. They planned to keep the 47 survivors in custody for further investigation. They also wanted to learn more about the Epics organization because, according to the survivors, this group would start forming around the year 2024, eventually becoming extremely dangerous in the future. Although Officer Jewell was not in favor of hiding all this from the general public, there was nothing he could do. On the other hand, we are shown the woman named Reese, who was giving breath to her daughter Leah when she drowned. She didn't drown like everyone else, but ended up in a hunting boat. He sets out to find his daughter Leah, who has become separated from him in the water. The rest of the survivors are happy to see the current world in the police camp and survive. The air and water here were clean. Leah was surprised to see the handmade toy. Wild animals were already extinct due to future pollution. Officer Emma starts asking them various questions, and one of them gives her some unknown information. They had already said that time travel could only be done twice using a time machine, and there was another group, meaning that before them, another group from the future had already arrived at this time, but they didn't get into the water and no one knew where they were, meaning another group from the future mixed in with the common people. Even the police didn't know who they were. Meanwhile, Reese continues to threaten Officer Jewell at gunpoint for taking his daughter Leah. She initially thought her daughter might have drowned, so Officer Jewell took her to the morgue where the bodies of drowned people were. However, it wasn't his daughter's body that made him happy. He believed that Leah was still alive, but by then, the rest of the guards had arrived from the camp, but surprisingly, Reese was too strong. He killed them, broke the window, and escaped. This meant that he was an Epics, which the survivors had already informed them. Emma and Joe are horrified after watching CCTV footage, realizing that not only normal humans, but also genetically modified Epics from the future have arrived in their time. They needed to catch Reese as soon as possible because he was an Epics. After this incident, they start to believe the words of the survivors. They realize that they are indeed from the future, and what they are saying is true. Emma set up a camp in the middle of the forest, where they isolated the 47 people from the future from the rest of the world. Each person was given a separate room, and Emma made sure that there would be very tight security around the camp because more Epics might come out of these people. Meanwhile, Homeland Security Chief Crack meets privately with one of the survivors, who tells them that people from the future have arrived before this time. Man was shocked that Crack himself came from the future and became the head of security, which meant they had some ulterior motive, which is why they weren't telling the rest of the people the truth. On the other hand, Reese re-enters Jute's room and says that he has to get his daughter Leah at any cost, who is currently in the police camp. From here, he begins to tell Zoot his history of how, in 1987, He himself was an Epix, a mutated superhuman. The next stage of evolution, they were killing ordinary people so that only their kind, the superhumans Kutsao, could survive on Earth. Once, Reese and another companion entered a common people's camp, where common people were dying of disease spread by Epix. However, the disease did not affect Apex as they were already immune to it. In that camp, where she had been sent to kill common people, she noticed a small girl. Since Reese herself did not have a child, she decided to keep the girl with her. She couldn't bring herself to kill her. However, this was against the laws of the Epix, so she had to kill her fellow soldier to keep this secret. Reese brought the girl home and started raising her. However, her husband, who is also an Epix, said that they could not raise a common human, especially without informing the higher authorities. By then, Reese had fallen in love with the baby and asked her husband to keep it a secret. Despite this, her husband informed the higher authorities about the truth. Reese is called to a meeting and told that Reese will also be imprisoned for life for harboring a normal human child. To save her daughter's life, Reese killed all the officers present, saving only her husband to live with the guilt of his betrayal for the rest of his life. He knew that he and his daughter would no longer be safe at this point as the entire Epix group would now be after him. So after a few years in hiding, he joins the rest of the common people in time traveling to the past, specifically to the year 2024. However, they didn't know that the place they were time traveling to would be underwater in 2024. In their time, in 2187, the water dried up from that place. As a result, most people died after reaching the water and only 47 survived. At the beginning of the story, Reese sent her daughter to a government camp to save her, but now she can't go there herself. Meanwhile, at the camp, the police team had started DNA testing all the survivors, wanting to make sure none of the 47 were Epix, as that would pose a threat to the people of this time. Fortunately, none of them were Epix, meaning they now had to catch Reese as soon as possible. On the other hand, Jute began to trust that, even though Reese was an Epix, she had a good heart and only wanted to reunite with her daughter Leah. Reese had rebelled against the Epix group for her daughter. However, Jute didn't want to go against the police just yet. So he locked Reese in a room and called the authorities to tell them everything. Although Reese isn't bad at heart, he asks Emma to meet with Reese in private and she will decide what to do next. Judd refuses to tell anyone, but Emma tells her boss everything. Judd has Reese locked up in his house. They, along with the soldiers, proceeded to arrest him. On the other hand, he overhears everything Jude told the rest of the force about him on the phone, so he also begins preparing to escape. Moments later, when the soldiers came to arrest him, he was shot but jumped into the water to escape. Meanwhile, Jude is angry at Emma because she asked him to come alone, and she calls him to scold him, saying that he will never trust her again. He decides to drop the case and spend some peaceful time with his son. However, by now things had turned sour between him and his wife. The next day, Jude goes to a local fair with his son, but he doesn't know that an injured Reese is wandering around the forest with the rest of the soldiers. Everyone already knew about his epic status, and he was on the run from being captured and killed. The head of the department, Crack, who himself is from the future, hires a doctor to secretly examine the 47 people from the future and keep everything a secret. He was offered a lot of money for this job. Emma quickly arrives at the camp and informs them that young Leia is very sick, and she asks the doctor to treat her quickly. In fact, Leia was infected with the same disease that Apex created to kill normal people in the future, and has no cure at this time. Meanwhile, Reese, running from the soldiers in the forest, easily kills all the soldiers and escapes. His mission was to save his daughter Leia at any cost. Jude, on the other hand, after wandering around the fair with his son, finds the corpse of a soldier with a message for him on it. Jude notices that his son is missing from the fair, meaning he has been kidnapped. Reese calls Jude and threatens to kill his son if he doesn't get his daughter from the camp. Now Jude has no choice, so he rushes to the camp and begs them to hand Leah over so he can save her son. But her senior gives her the bad news that Leah is suffering from a terminal illness and will die immediately if she is taken off the life support system. They can't send him now. The head doctor also informs him that Leia has a disease from the future that currently has no cure. Now Jude says that the doctor must come with him and explain everything, otherwise there is a chance of harming his son. At first, Emma doesn't allow it because she doesn't want to put the doctor's life in danger. However, the stakes are high. He is an Epix and has already killed many of their soldiers. But now the doctor himself says that he wants to go to her because with her blood, he can find a formula to cure this disease. Epics are immune to the effects of this disease. Now, the doctor and Jude both reach the address given by Reese and tell her everything about how Leah's condition is critical and they can't take her off the life support system. At first, Reese thinks they're lying, but the doctor himself says he'll stay with Judd's son to find a cure for the disease affecting Eve. Jude is very happy that his son is still safe and unharmed. In fact, her son even tells her how Eve took great care of him. On the other hand, everyone in the camp was worried because the first group that had arrived by this time, they were wondering where those people could be. Just then, one of the survivors from the future group gives Emma a sketch of his wife, Greta, who came with the previous group this time. Fortunately, Emma recognizes her as Greta, who holds a higher position. Now, Emma goes to meet him and starts asking if she's from the future because a survivor gave her the sketch, saying she's his wife. Hearing this, Greta becomes worried, realizing her truth has been revealed. Emma also notices several pictures in her house, including one of Homeland Security Chief Craig, indicating that he is also from the future. It turns out that the first team from the future is planning something secret, but before Emma can tell anyone, Greta shoots Emma in the back so no one will find out their secret. On the other hand, the doctor starts taking blood samples from Reese because he is an apex, immune to all diseases. The doctor was trying to make an antidote from his blood to save his daughter, Leia. They also get a call from the camp saying Leah's condition is deteriorating and she won't live much longer. So, the doctor rushes to the camp to prepare the medicine and give it to Leia at the last minute, finally saving her life. Although now he has apex blood, which he can continue experimenting on. The doctor visits Reese and tells him that his daughter is safe now, and that the camp will soon be evacuated, so he can leave with his daughter Leah. He starts preparing for this. He paid a lot of money and forged documents for himself and Leah so that he could run away with Leah and start a new life. Meanwhile, the doctor himself was suffering from cancer. As he was dying, he got the idea to save his life by creating a new drug from Reese's blood. On the other hand, Zoot learns that Emma is now missing, and no one knows where she is. He wasn't even at his house. Zoot and the other officers learned that Emma was looking for the wife of a survivor who had some connection with their boss, Greta. Greta tells Nekrit that her husband Paul has also arrived at this time and that he is telling everyone that he is from the future. By this time, Jude and other officers became suspicious of their chief, and they arrested their division chief. However, the purchase had a very high-level connection. The town's mayor himself comes to free Cray, meaning he's also from the future. On this day, the division decided to move 47 people out of the camp to the outside world, as they now believed that these people would do them no more harm. After all, how long is it possible to keep them captive? Still, they install tracking devices in everyone so that no person can try to escape. Meanwhile, Reese was already waiting for such an opportunity to run away with his daughter. As planned, the survivors are taken on a trip to a small nearby town so they can see the society of the time and learn to fit in. They are quite happy to see how clean the air is this time as opposed to the future, where there will be no water, no clean environment. On top of that, crop growth will also stop. This is why the Apex category people chose to kill them, so that the remaining resources could be preserved only for themselves. Meanwhile, Jut himself joined in. She wanted to give her daughter to this man, so he pretends to be a guide and takes little Leah to the bathroom. He removes Leah's tracking device so that the police cannot trace them. From there, Reese and Jute say their final goodbyes to each other, as their paths are now separate. However, it was not what they had planned. At a hotel, Reese notices that the police have already placed another tracking device on Leah's toy. Reese quickly starts to take Leah away because the soldiers could arrive at any moment. That's exactly what happens. The soldiers eventually capture Leah and Reese. It's revealed that this was part of Craig's plan from the beginning. He sent Leia as bait so they could capture the only Apex present at the time. They take Reese to their lab where the doctor and Greta are already present, suggesting that they kill him as this is the beginning of the Apex generation, and they fear that Reese may spawn epics. Meanwhile, Craig had already called the camp doctor to learn about the evolution before killing her, which made them far stronger than ordinary humans. The doctor had different plans and started collecting blood samples without informing anyone, intending to use them to cure her own cancer. By now, people had begun to realize that the police had 47 individuals who had come from the future. They started protesting, demanding the truth to be revealed, or they would attack the camp. This increased the police's problems as their senior officer, Emma, had been missing for several days. However, they didn't know that Greta had already killed her so that her and Craig's secret wouldn't be exposed. Finally, the police find Emma's body near the camp, and all the evidence points to the fact that someone from the group of 47 had killed her. However, suspicion had already arisen that something was wrong. Meanwhile, Greta meets her husband, Paul, who is overjoyed to see her. Greta had traveled back in time with the first group to 2024. She asks Paul to record a video in which he says that they haven't time traveled from the future. Paul, happy to see his wife after so long, does as she asks without knowing the reason behind it. In reality, Greta was doing this under Craig's orders. Craig wanted people to believe that the police were lying about the group coming from the future. They would eventually kill the other 45 people from the group so that the secret would be buried and no obstacles would arise in their plan. After convincing the people at the camp, they gradually start releasing everyone with the intent to kill them one by one as soon as they exit. Greta also takes Paul home alone, showing him their son, who is very happy in this time period. However, Paul realizes that his drink was poisoned, and he dies right there. Greta had done this at Craig's behest. Meanwhile, the camp doctor had created more antidotes from Leah's blood and was perfecting it for herself, ensuring there would be no side effects on her body. The doctor tells Zoot that Cray is holding Reese in the lab and that they are going to kill him soon. The two quickly head to the lab where Reese was tortured for so long that the scientists could find the Apex Generation's weakness. But Reese, after freeing himself, kills the scientists. He also destroyed all his blood samples so no one could hold on to the clues. They knew from history that the formula would start in 2024, although they didn't realize that his doctor had hidden some samples beforehand. Now, he injects those samples into himself, which instantly cures his cancer. The other Cray decided that he couldn't kill the people in the camp while the police were around, so he decided to attack the camp one night. However, Zoot already knew this, so he sent a message to the survivors in the camp, warning them to leave the camp immediately, or everyone would be killed. Now, all the survivors start capturing the guards so that they can escape. Judd has already cut the wires of the gate outside so that he can bring out all the survivors of the camp and go inside to meet Cray to convince him to kill the survivors should not. Cray says that in the future, the Apex people started killing ordinary people, so when he brought the first human group to this time, they secretly formed a group to slowly rise to the top. This time, they will block the formation of Apex group. Now, Zoot assures that they will never allow the Apex group to form, and instead of killing those 47 people, they have already made Maru's video viral online, where he says that these 47 people are not from the future, but immigrants from neighboring countries. Therefore, no one will doubt them. Cray agreed to the deal because he only wanted to prevent the Apex group from forming, and these survivors were regular people, except for Riley's, who Lai took over, promising to always watch over him. Zoot returns to the survivors and gives them fake IDs so they can live as normal people this time. He was happy that he had helped these survivors, and since they already knew about the future, they would now keep track of global warming and the Apex group to keep Earth's future safe. The 47 survivors go to different countries and live there, hiding the fact that they are from the future. Otherwise, they would never have lived a normal life. Meanwhile, Jute marries Reese, who is already divorced, and Jute and Reese both take good care of Jute's son. They thought everything was fine now, but it was revealed that the doctor Reese had injected himself with blood now that his body had changed. He became quite powerful, and he began to create more people like himself using the same blood sample. It turns out that the Apex group was started by none other than the doctor himself in 2024. Even though Zoot and Reese thought they changed the future, the timeline was still the same. Everything that had happened so far was just part of a loop. The Apex Corporation will also be created in the future, just as the doctor will be created, and then they will start killing ordinary people. Everything will happen exactly as before, meaning no one has changed anything. And with this thrilling ending, the entire series ends here. So let us know in the comments how you found the series and subscribe the channel for more new series like this. Thank you.